Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for NCUA's webinar on working with your regulator, the Small Credit Union and MDI Support Program. My name is Allie Lamberski, a credit union training coordinator here in the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion at the NCUA, and I will be your moderator for today's program. Before we begin, I do have just a few administrative announcements. If you're having any difficulty hearing my voice, please adjust the volume on your computer. If you are still having difficulty hearing after adjusting the volume, please use the Q&A feature at the right-hand corner of your console to send us a message. A member of our tech support team will be able to assist you right away. In addition, please make sure that you allow pop-ups from the site to have full visibility to all materials shown today. And the materials shown today will be available in approximately 2 weeks on our learning management system. This material will feature a PDF copy of today's slides, as well as a closed captioned video, and you will be able to download a copy of those slides as well. To access these education resources, you will need to have an account on the NCUA LMS. The good news is there is no charge for the account setup, and access for the LMS is available to credit union volunteers and employees completely for free. So if you need to set up an account, you can go to ncua.gov/support services, select Credit Union Resources and Expansion, and then select Learning. After creating your account, please allow about 24 hours for all learning material to generate. We do have over 300 courses, so it does take just a little bit of time, but after that 24-hour window, you should have access to all 300 courses and more on that learning management website. I do have just a brief disclaimer that I must read out to you today. The materials presented in this webinar are intended as an informative and educational summary of general information on resources available for credit unions. The NCUA has taken reasonable measures to ensure the quality of the data and other information produced by the NCUA that is available in this presentation. The NCUA, however, makes no warranty, express or implied, nor assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, correctness, or completeness of any information that is available through this presentation, nor represents that its use would not infringe on privately owned rights. The slides are intended for educational and discussion purposes and do not constitute legal advice, nor replace independent professional judgment. Reference to any specific commercial product, process, or service by trade name, trademark, manufacturer, or otherwise does not constitute an endorsement, recommendation, or favoring by the U.S. government or the NCUA. This is our agenda for today's webinar. After opening remarks, I will turn it over to our speakers to begin today's program on the Small and MDI Credit Union Support Program. And our program today features representatives from our regional offices today. And during this presentation, they will also be able to assist with any questions and answers that we may have if we do have remaining time. And then afterwards, I will review any upcoming events and end the session by providing our contact information. Before we get started, we do have our usual polling question for us to help get to know our audience a little better. Our question is, what asset range best represents your credit union? A, 0 to 50 million, B, 51 million to 250 million, C, 251 to 500 million, D, 501 to 1 billion, E, greater than 1 billion, and F, not a credit union. So I'll just go ahead and pause for a few moments to allow everyone a chance to answer our polling question before we get started. All right, and it does look like we are starting to slow down with our polling responses from the audience, and it does look like we have, as always, a great mix of credit unions here joining us today. So I hope that you find this presentation very educational and helpful. Today's webinar, I want to point out just for a quick moment, features a topic that was incredibly popular at this year's MDI symposium that was just held last month in Durham, North Carolina. Participants mentioned how incredibly helpful this presentation was, as well as how wonderful our presenters were. Based on this feedback, we are so happy to be able to bring it back as a webinar for credit unions who were not able to attend in person. As always, we would love to hear more about what topics you are interested in learning more about. So please, I'm just going to plug our post-event survey again one more time. Let us know in that post-event survey what you are looking at, what you're looking for. And before I get started, let's meet our presenters. So we have 3 presenters today, starting off with 2 coming from our southern region. So we'll start off with Anthony Manuel. He is a supervisory examiner for South Louisiana and is a Louisiana native and has been with the NCUA for over 35 years. He graduated from McNeese State University and began his career as an examiner out of Lake Charles. He has examined credit unions of all sizes, mostly in Louisiana, and a few billion-dollar shops in other states. He has also been selected to serve as an examiner in charge for large complex regional team examinations, and also served 8 years as a supervision analyst in Austin, Texas. Anthony has been the supervisory examiner for South Louisiana since November of 2022 and has also served as an IS&T subject matter expert and received his CISA certification in 2009. Anthony has 3 adult children and 1 grandson and enjoys hunting, fishing, gardening, and everything outdoors that Louisiana has to offer. With the wonderful weather in Louisiana, I totally understand why. It's a beautiful area. Tyler Dunnam is our second presenter today. He is a principal examiner and IT subject matter expert in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Try saying that 3 times fast. After graduating from the University of Alabama, he worked briefly as a branch manager trainee for a regional finance company. He was inspired to pursue a career with the NCUA after spending 3 years with the Louisiana Office of Financial Institutions, where he examined credit unions, banks, finance companies, payday shops, check cashiers, and pawn shops. Tyler is passionate about helping credit unions achieve their goals so they can continue to provide affordable financial services and make a positive impact in their community. He is also an avid sports fan, enjoys being outdoors and spending time with his family and friends. And finally, we have Ron Goode, who is our instructional system specialist within the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion in the NCUA. Ron has been instrumental in creating courses for the learning management system, including one of our most popular courses, Serving the Underserved. Prior to his time at the NCUA, Ron previously worked for the National Association of Federal Credit Unions, NAFCU, prior to their merger, and helped design and implement courses for their learning system as well. And it was instrumental in the creating of a compliance training for credit unions. One fun fact about Ron that I always love to share, he is very passionate about trains and he can tell you all sorts of fun facts about his trains. So I am very happy to be able to welcome him as well from behind the scenes up front, joining our 2 examiners for today's presentation. So now I will go ahead and turn it over to T to be able to begin.
Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm kind of looking at the numbers there, and I watched them climb about how many people were attending. I think we started out as about 115 or so. We're up at 160. I'm kind of using it like a almost like a telethon, like I'm hoping to get up to 200, right? Anyway, so Tyler and I were both selected to give these presentations. We gave one at the MDI symposium earlier this year, and then now, so we have this virtual one. It was a little less formal because we had eye-to-eye contact with a lot of you out in the audience, and we were able to answer questions kind of ad lib. Where I think we're going to hold off and do the Q&A at the end of the session. So with that, I'll kind of jump into a couple of things here. I think some of the reasons that we were sort of volunteered to give this presentation was the fact that we deal with a lot of small credit unions and a lot of minority depository institutions. In our group alone, which is all of Southwest Louisiana, we have 29 right now, soon to be 28. And I think by the end of the year, we may end up losing another MDI. Most of our MDIs are small, and I'm saying some of them get really tiny. And so we do our best to try to help these small MDIs overcome the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis. Because I feel like there is a place for MDIs. There's a place for small credit unions. They serve a unique field of membership, and we have to do what we can to preserve them. Part of our initiatives at NCUA focus around the fact that, well, we have a lot of support right now. Okay, so we have a board chairman and 2 other board members that are passionate about helping small credit unions and helping our minority depository institutions also. As Ali said, I've been with NCUA for over 35 years, and I always took pride in the fact that in my district and in all the districts that I worked in, I was able to not merge any credit unions. We started out, when I first started, we had something like so close to 15,000 credit unions, and I think we're under 5,000 now. So I wanted to preserve the small credit unions as best I could, and I didn't want any to merge in my particular area because of the fact that I didn't that would have put me having to travel more on the road, and my little babies were small back then. They're all grown now, so but anyway, so that's kind of a little background about why Tyler and I were chose. Again, we deal with a lot of small credit unions, and as Ali said, we're gonna talk about the small credit union and the MDI support program. We'll jump into the NCUA's learning management system with Ron, and then go over some helpful tips and tricks that Tyler and I put together. We kind of polled a couple of other people and put together some list of things that we feel like would help you during your examinations. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Tyler, and Tyler's going to go over a lot of things with you, and I'll just kind of jump in every now and then and add my 2 cents here and there. But Tyler, take it away.
All right, thank you, T. Good afternoon, everyone. Our small credit union and MDI support program provides additional hours for examiners and the NCUA to support small credit unions and MDIs in a meaningful way outside of our normal supervision. Support can be provided as a standalone contact or in conjunction with your examination if time allows. Support can be provided to credit union staff and volunteers, including board members and supervisory committee members if needed. So you're probably wondering, how does our support program work? Since, we are your examiners and we have a job to protect the share insurance fund and to regulate. So basically we, through this program, we can't do the work for you, but we can help by answering questions, providing additional guidance and direction, directing management to resources available to them, and supporting management in their efforts to address operational issues. Next slide. Credit unions with less than $100 million in assets as of the prior calendar year end, and all MDIs can participate in our support program. Next slide. These are some of the areas where we can provide assistance. So finding resources, strategic issues, and examination and compliance issues. Keep in mind, this is not an all-inclusive list. So, if there's something that you feel like you need help with or training on, just let your examiner know and we'll get you in touch with the right person. Next slide. All right, here are some examples of support that we've provided in our group in Louisiana. So helping new managers and CEOs address prior examination concerns, providing training to help comply with Part 748 of NCUA's rules and regulations. For example, developing information security risk assessments, developing a net worth restoration plan, providing training on cash account reconciliations, and providing training on NCUA's simplified CECL tool. So again, these are just some examples. If there's something that you guys feel like you need help with, just let your examiner know. Next slide. In 2023, we had a 10,000 hour budget for our small credit union and MDI support program, and we only used about 67% of that budget. So examiners are spending a good amount of time supporting our small credit unions and MDIs, but there is more time available in our budget, and that's the reason we're really putting on this webinar today, is to get more participation in this program.
So,
Next slide.
I'm going to step in here and add a couple of things that I probably should have started with a little earlier. So these are the budgeted hours, and so I think the way this initiative kind of got kicked off was the fact that examiners were going into our credit unions, and we were just kind of documenting a lot of the issues and a lot of the problems that we were seeing in our credit unions. And at times we were spending a lot of our time focusing on maybe helping credit unions while we were there, right? And so that was kind of eating into our exam time. So I think what happened, the way this kind of developed, is that as we complain sometimes about, hey, we don't have enough time to do this, or we don't have enough time to do this, I would love to spend some time going over or teaching that manager how to do a bank reconciliation, or teaching that person, how to set up their computer to pull down the fence-in list and things like that. And so again, it was eating into our examiner time. So the NCUA board actually allocated these hours to us in the field to be able to use. And as you can see in that chart, I don't know if Tyler was going to go to the next one, but as you can see in that chart, we were each allocated so many hours to do to do MDIs training or to do small credit union training. And again, so if you look at that chart, I like to always point out that the southern region had like 88%, right, of the completed budgets. So we were knocking it out of the park that first year. And I think that Group I was kind of instrumental in that, in providing that training. We even did some group training and things like that. So I just kind of wanted to point that out, and then I'm gonna kick it back over to you, Tyler, to continue.
Thank you, T. Next slide. All right, so this slide shows us how much time we budgeted and spent for MDIs specifically. And as you can see, we only use 48% of our budget in this program for MDIs. So again, there's more time available. We want you guys to use this program. Next slide.
And I will point out that slide was from last year. And so we're coming upon the end of the year for us. And we've been, of course, we've been doing exams, and we had a lot of turnover and kind of short-handed here and there, just trying to get our examination program complete for the year. But we do have quite a bit of time available, between now and the end of the year to provide some additional training. So if you're in a credit union out there and you want some additional training, reach out to your examiner. And I think we're going to talk about how to do that at maybe a later slide. But the key is to ask your examiner for that additional training. And if that examiner doesn't have the resources, they can go to their supervisor, request that maybe somebody else in the group might have a little bit of time available to go and provide that training to you. We even work together in different groups where I might have an SE call me, hey, I got a credit union requesting this additional training in this area. You got a guy that that's worked with us in the past. I know he was strong in the area of record keeping, internal controls. This credit union needs it. They need the help. What's your availability? And we'll off those resources sometime and kind of work together and to get that done. The point I wanted to make, we're at the end of 2024. We have a lot of hours still remaining in the budget to provide assistance to you. So ask your examiner, reach out and ask. Go ahead, Tyler.
All right, next slide. Okay, so this slide shows us our MDI participation rate in the support program. So in 2022, we only had a 27% participation rate, and in 2023, that increased to 32%. So as we've been talking about, we hope to see that continue to increase. Next slide. All right, so we're going to shift gears a little bit now, and we're going to talk about our learning management system, which you guys can access through ncua.gov. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Ron with our Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion to discuss the LMS. Ron?
Great. Thank you so much. Give me a minute to, there we go. Thank you so much, Tyler and T, for your support and for the great information you've provided, already about the support that you provide to MDI and small credit unions. So if you go to the next slide, please, Allie. So as Allie already mentioned, there is no charge to have an account on the learning management system. It's available only to credit unions. The best way to get to it is to go to ncua.gov, support services, and then credit union resources and expansion, and then learning. So if you on the first page, Allie, go back for just a moment to that page just before this one, if you don't mind. So if you look over on the far right-hand lower corner, you see learning. That's where you want to go. You can learn about other resources from that page, like our grants and loans, our MDI program. But the learning link is that last one on the left, and that will take you, if you click on see more, it will take you to a link to lead you to our learning management system. So, okay, Allie, you can go back to that slide. And then next slide, please. So on our learning management system, we have several different types of content is the best way to put it. So we have online club courses, which are, go at your own pace, click and learn courses where you can stop and pick it up where you left off. It's considered asynchronous because the presenter, the course, the presenter, whoever the SME was, and you are not online at the same time. And we use authoringware to create those, and we have them on a variety of topics from BSA, other compliance issues, operational issues, etc. So there's over 300 courses on the learning management system, and on a variety of topics. And then we have videos, and okay, videos are self-explanatory, but we have a series for board of directors training. Is actually in 9 different categories related to board of directors responsibilities and how that fits into the operation of your credit union. And each category has 3 to 5 videos, and they're short. They're like 3 to 5 minutes each. There's a total of 35 of them. And so that's one set of videos. We also have supervisory committee video series, which is about 4 videos. And then we have one on a topic that Tyler, I believe, talked about the kind of support they give on mentoring. And we're going to talk about mentoring a little later, I hope, but I really recommend that you check that out. And then we have materials. So materials can be anything else that's left other than an online course or video. And that includes, for example, a white paper. It could be a white paper, it could be a guide. Most of it are the recordings of our webinars. So this webinar, for example, its recording will be loaded on the learning management system as a material. And so you can find all of NCUA's webinars that we have hosted, that Curious have hosted on our learning management system. You just search, and if you click on the materials icon, you'll be able to narrow the search a little bit. Then the next thing we have are curriculums. Curriculums are a combination of any of the aforementioned 3 items I talked about. So it could be a course with a video, with a guide, or a link to a webinar recording. It can be anything. And it's, and we put them together in a curriculum to make it better for you. So that if you're looking for, let's say, something on succession planning or something on serving the underserved. That's one curriculum that I recommend that, Allie mentioned is one that's really popular. Everything is in one place. So, we just kind of package them up for you to make it easier. The wonderful thing about curriculums is that any one of those, online courses, videos, and materials can be in more than one curriculum. So let's say you watch the video recording of this webinar, and we included it in a curriculum, and later, that you actually log in and sign up for that curriculum. That video recording, if you marked it complete, will already show up in your transcript as complete. So all you have to do is the other things included in that curriculum. So the LMS really tracks your progress really well. The other thing about the LMS is for everything that you do, whether it's an online course, a video, or material, or curriculum, you get a certificate of completion once you complete it. And that's really helpful if, for example, you have to do annual BSA training. You or your volunteers have to do this annual training. You can do that, download the certificate of completion, and use that as proof that you've, fulfill that requirement. If you're, but work with your examiner to make sure that they, that is what they will accept. But that should be the case. And of course, we got two of them on the call right now, so if I'm wrong, they'll correct me. But
So, yeah,
anyway, that's
so
say that
Ron,
again.
yeah, I'll chime in a little bit because this was one of the questions in our live session that came up
Yes.
that one of the credit unions asked us was that, hey, so I see, we've seen you have BSA training on there. Would that count as our annual training, for the board or for the supervisory committee, or for our employees? And the answer that we provided them was that it depends. It depends on your financial institution. If you're a small institution that does not have a lot of cash transactions, everything's on payroll deduction, and everything's kind of real simplistic in your credit union, then it probably could qualify as your annual training. And so that's why it's key for each person to have their own login, because they can print their own certificate, and that would be their proof to the examiner. Hey, this board member attended this session, such and such date. If not, if they do it in a group setting, then I would say that they need to document somehow, print the certificate, all sign the certificate, date it, that the date that they attended, and so forth. And to add to that a little bit, Ron, we had some credit unions that we actually, required some managers to get training, or some board members to get some additional training, because we saw issues in their credit union that needed to be addressed, and we felt like the board needed some training to understand what their role is on the board of directors. Some new board members had come on, and it's just like, well, I'm not sure what exactly my role is, or my responsibilities are. Same with the supervisory committee. And so we've actually put the link to the LMS in our reports, sometimes as a supplementary fact. Sometimes if we have a DOR requiring training in an area, we won't tell you you have to get our training, but you have to get some training, and here's a place where you can go to get some additional training. And that's been real helpful to a lot of small credit unions and MDIs in our group.
Very good. Thank you, T. I'm so glad you chimed in on that. And you brought up a lot of really good points that I was going to reiterate, and I'm going to go to those real quick. Thank you so much. So you're right. Everyone at your credit union, if they're a volunteer on your supervisory committee or they're an employee, each one of them can have their own account on the learning management system at no charge. So we recommend that instead of having one account for the entire credit union, for exactly the reason that T just mentioned. Everyone that takes the BSA training will get their own certificate of completion, because once one person does it, it's done. You don't have, you'll have a certificate that says ABC Credit Union completed the course versus John Doe or Jane Smith or whatever the person's name happens to be. So that is why we strongly recommend that each person has their own account. The other thing I wanted to talk about is now that our learning management system is available to all NCUA employees, including examiners. So as T mentioned, sometimes he puts the link in and he sends it to the, sends it to the credit union and say, hey, check this out. Actually, they can go a little further than that. They can actually go into our LMS, look up the training that they think the credit union they are examining should take, copy that URL and send it to them in an email. And if the credit union employee has an account on the LMS and they log in, once they click that link, that very course will come up. So they don't have to go search for it. So that's a really great tool that, that can be used, to help facilitate what T was talking about. And I think when we talked about this at the conference, I think if I'm correct me, T and Tyler, you thought that was a good idea to be able to do that.
Yes, yeah, I thought it was a great idea, and it's like you said also, it's kind of important that each person sign up, get their own account and things like that. We are a government agency, and we spend money on these resources. Ron has done an excellent job of setting this tool up for our credit unions, and we like to see it used. And like I said, we're a government agency, and if it doesn't get used, it's not going to stay up there too long. That's been my experience with working for the government. But yeah, so we encourage you to use it.
Yes.
It's out there. It's a tool for you, and you could gain a lot of information from it.
Great. I agree. Thank you so much, T. And so the last thing I'm going to say about the content on the LMS before I turn it back to T is the only thing that we don't offer currently is instructor-led training. That's why it's not on the list right now. And so that's synchronous learning where the instructor or the SME and the students are online at the same time. Our LMS does have that capacity. Stay tuned. That may be coming up in the future. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass it back to my colleague, T.
And I'm going to hand it over to Tyler.
I'm sorry. Maybe I should have just skipped the middleman. Sorry about that,
Let me know if I'm supposed to cover that slide. Is that my slide, Tyler?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
So we just have a tip here. So, really communication is key with your examiners. And these are some benefits of our small credit union and MDI support program as well. But it often leads to mentorships with other credit unions in your area, as your examiner has those relationships with a lot of different credit unions, and they can help facilitate discussions pretty easily. This program often leads to better collaboration with your examiner. If you're communicating more often and you kind of have an open door policy, if you will, that it just seems to work better. And another huge benefit of this program is, issues may be addressed with your examiner between examinations instead of only during examinations. So that it makes the process a lot smoother, and your examination may not be as overwhelming, if we're addressing issues as they come because of that collaboration.
And one thing, Tyler, too, that I'm kind of remembering some of the questions that some of the people had asked during our open session, and one of the things they were concerned about, we were talking about collaborating with your examiner, and you might be getting to this a little bit later on in another slide, but I wanted to touch on it while it was fresh. One of them said, what if I don't have a good communication with my examiner, or I've asked my examiner, they don't have time, or let's face it, I'm not getting along with my examiner, and I'm not going to ask him for anything else, So there are those situations, and there are those cases when that actually happens, and so if you go to the front page of your report, your examination report, it lists your examiner, then it'll have the supervisor's email address, and then, then of course the regional office's address. So if you need training or you need help or assistance in some area and you're not getting it because there's a communication breakdown with your examiner, you can reach out to that SC. You can also reach out to that region and request some additional help, and they can put you in touch with somebody that will get that information to you and provide that training if you feel uncomfortable about discussing those things with your examiner. One of the ladies pointed out to us at the last at our in-person session was that I have a great working relationship with a prior examiner. And I was like, well, okay, so then maybe you can, if you still have that examiner's email address and they're still with the agency, you can maybe reach out to that person. We're all in this together. We want to see you succeed. And so sometimes it's okay to do that. I'm not saying it'll be it'll work out every situation, but a lot of times if you reach around and tap that SC on the shoulder and say, hey, I need some additional help here. I don't feel comfortable with going to my examiner. He can put you in touch with the right examiner that can help you out there.
All right, thank you, T. Next slide, please. All right, so these are some of the tips that we put together, really to help our small credit unions and MDIs overcome some common challenges, and also some tips to help with the examination process, just to ensure that it goes smoothly and there's good collaboration with your examiner. So I'm just going to kind of go down the list here, and T, feel free to jump in if you want to. But communicate frequently with your examiner. Look for mentoring relationships, whether it's with other credit unions in your area or with your credit union league chapters. And a big thing with that too, when your examiner sets up a mentoring relationship for you, make sure that you respond to that request. I think this has been mentioned several times throughout this presentation, but ask your examiner for help when you need it. Don't be afraid to ask. That's why we're here. Remember that marketing is important to enhance growth. Don't overlook marketing, and don't be stagnant and don't do nothing at all. You always want to be looking for positive growth and improving your operations and looking to achieve your goals that you set.
Tyler, I want to hit back on mentoring, and I think Ron probably has some that he wants to say about mentoring also, because I think there's on the LMS there is a presentation on mentoring that that's included in there that we'll talk about some of the pros and cons of mentoring, talks about some of the importance of mentoring and so forth. But so while we're on the mentoring relationships, again, you can see on the slide other credit unions, league chapters, anything like that. In our group, we have a couple of credit unions with a couple of strong CEOs that go out there and help some of our smaller credit unions. Again, we have a lot of MDIs, and so they'll offer that assistance and that mentoring relationship where they'll kind of coach them along. A lot, and this came up in our open session, there was a lot of concern among small credit unions, maybe among some of your MDIs, that, hey, I don't want to go and visit with this credit union because they're going to be wanting to merge with me. They're going to take my credit union over. So reach out to your examiners if you get a chance, because what we find out in the field, we know which credit unions are predatory, right? We know which ones are going to provide you with just that little bit of assistance to get you where you need to be, to prop you up so they can ask you to merge with them. We also know which credit unions are genuine, at heart, willing to provide the assistance to help you guys out, to get get some additional training that you need. Um, you know, it's all about helping each other get to where they need to be. When we did our training, we put together a group training using the Small Credit Union MDI program. And Tyler might be getting to this later too, but we put together a group training that that included several small credit union managers, right? And while we were and there was a larger credit union that said, hey, it's okay, y'all can use our boardroom to conduct this training. And while they were in there conducting the training, they were talking about collections and collecting on loans and the difficulty small credit unions were having to collect on these on loans and so forth. And they just really didn't have the resources. And so the examiner actually went upstairs and got the collector, and the collector came down and gave a presentation during our group training session. So there are those type of relationships that you can build upon working with other credit unions, and we encourage you to reach out to other credit unions that are willing to provide the assistance. And as Tyler pointed out, if your examiner sets those relationships up and you don't respond, it's kind of disheartening to us, because we go in and it's like, we said all this, we did all this work, and nobody's came to the table, right? We put together this large presentation for Thanksgiving, and nobody came to the table. So there's that, and then as Tyler said, marketing is important to enhance growth. What we had in one of our credit unions that we went into not too long ago, the credit union was located in a building that belonged to somebody else, or they shared a building, and there was no signage. There was no way for members to even know that a credit union was there. And so they were wondering why membership's declining or membership's dropping off. There was nothing there that said, hey, we have a credit union here and it belongs to your members. And this was inside the sponsor, right? So again, use some marketing, reach out to your members any way you can. And with that, Tyler, I'm gonna let you hit the last slide.
All right, next slide. All right, so again, just some more tips, to help with your examination and to overcome some challenges here. What I want to point out here is, and I guess it's my favorite tip on the slide, add brainstorming ideas to every agenda for your board meetings, to discuss ways to improve the credit union and, to achieve your goals. That way you're having some meaningful discussions, to ensure that the credit union is successful and that you're meeting or exceeding your goals. A lot of times, when we go in some credit unions that may be struggling, and one of the first things we look at is their board minutes, and a lot of times we see no discussions about what is the board's plan to turn around these negative trends or to make improvements here. And so if you just add that to every agenda, add that brainstorming item to every agenda, so you can have some meaningful discussions about ways to make improvements. T, do you have anything you want to add on this slide?
So I was kind of focusing on some of the question and answers that are some of the questions that were coming in. Sorry about that. Yes, I do. It's one of the things, Tyler, that you pointed out was meet monthly and add brainstorm and ideas to improve the credit union on every agenda. It's a lot of times we'll go in and read the board minutes. There's not much there. The board met. They had sandwiches. Had a little few snacks, and then the meeting closed. Well, that's not enough for us. We want to see where the credit union is actually having some meaningful discussions, about what's going on in the credit union and what they've done to try to preserve their credit union and to preserve their institution. So if you're an MDI and you're struggling, you have to show us that you are there, you're in it to win it, you know. And once we get that vibe from you, then we're going to go out of our way to get you the resources that you need to make your credit union succeed. If you're just waiting and for something to come down and save your credit union, and net worth continues to decline year after year, and you're losing money and nobody's doing anything, there's hardly no more members doing business with the credit union, then you have to do something to kind of jumpstart that, and we can help you with that. And you know, we can provide that assistance with you. We can provide the training through the MDI Small Credit Union Support Program. We can coach you along on what you need to do to get there, but you have to give us something. You have to show us that you're committed to this movement to get things moving for your credit union. And again, you know, without saying, it goes without saying, it's the bank record, the record keeping has to be there, right? You have to maintain good records for your credit union. Again, we can help you. Other credit unions could help you. We could point you in the right direction for training. Our league in Louisiana is Luminate. They've become more active over the years, and they do a great job of that. And again, the free training and the grant opportunities. You know, NCUA has the grant program each year, and so we encourage you to make use of that, to apply for it, to these grants, and to make use of those opportunities that are there, because that's money. That grant, that's free money you can get to pay for some of the things that you need to run your credit union. If you're a small credit union and you need another laptop, or you need a PC or anything like that, you know, there's grant money that's available. And I think Ron might even chime in and talk to you about grants, or you know, if he gets the opportunity to, unless I use up all the time talking, right, Ron? But the other thing was, so while we were at the MDI symposium, we also had what's the Tyler, you're going to have to help me out with this one. The lady that was there from the other company that does a lot of grants. Do you recall the name of that organization? They're a nationwide organization, and they provide a lot of grants also. It'll come to me in a little bit, but they were there, and they provide grants, and their grants are a little bit different than ours. Our grant money, I think you have to pay for the services first, and then you're reimbursed. Whereas this other group, and they're not a QSO, but this other group actually will provide that grant money up front if you apply for it and you qualify for it in the application. So again, I can't say enough. You know, we have some small credit unions and some MDIs that the only reason they're here today is because they survived on grants, and then now they were able to thrive and, you know, and get over the little hump that they had. And I'm trying to think of the name, but I can't think of the name of them. It'll come to me. And then I think from here we go to Q&A, unless Tyler or Ron wants to add anything. Ron, you want to add anything about the cure and the grants?
Yeah, I just want to just add quickly. Yeah, please check out the grants website. It's from that same resource page, and it's very explanatory. And T is right. Many of the issues that they're talking about, there's actually grants that could probably help you resolve some of those. So there's all kinds of technical assistance grants, and I'm not the grant expert by no means, but I recommend that you check out the website. And get ready, because at the end of this webinar, Allie is going to share some slides, and there's going to be resources on it. And one of them is, if I'm not mistaken, to the grants. So get ready to take a screenshot, pull out your camera on your mobile phone and take a picture of it, but you can definitely reach out to them for more information. And on the topic of mentorship, since we're going into Q&A anyway, so let's go ahead and go to our Q&A slide. So now's your opportunity to ask questions of any of us, of the three of us, and then we'll, of course, answer them. So you can put them in the text chat. We have a few that are there already, but since we've already segued to mentorship, I wanted to go back to T and Tyler about this because they mentioned that as one of the things that they can help credit unions with. And T is right. On our learning management system, there's actually a video called Credit Union Mentoring, How to Manage the Relationship. And I strongly recommend that you check that video out. It's a video course. I did that in conjunction with the MDI program manager, Pam Williams. And it was based not only on adult learning theory related to mentoring, but also our personal experience with the mentorship grant and the cohort that was attached to it that we did for about 3 years. And watching those credit unions participate in that, and how the mentor and mentee credit unions were able to create a relationship that lasted, years after. And one of the things that we did is we went back and we looked at how those credit unions that were mentees, so the mentee credit union is the one being mentored, obviously, how they have progressed, over the years. And we looked at their asset size, and each one of them had growth for the most part. And so I am passionate about mentorship programs. And what I wanted to ask T and Tyler is if they had any experience helping credit unions find a mentor, because we talk about that in the video, and what to look for, and if they had any experience working with that. Because one of the things that we found is some credit unions are really a little reluctant to ask a mentor for help, another credit union to help them. And I think understanding how that might work might ease some of that anxiety. So T and Tyler, I turn it back to you if you want to share anything about that.
Tyler, I mean, I got some things. I don't know if you wanted to throw something out there first, Tyler. But I'll
You good?
okay. So, first of all, inclusive is the word is the name that I was looking for
Yes.
the other grants. There was a representative from Inclusive that was at our MDI symposium, and they've done great work. I wish, I mean, if you need, you can Google it. You can reach out to the league. You can reach out to other credit unions that have used Inclusive, and they are very helpful. And they would just reach out to them, and they're more than willing to help you. They got funds that are available to them, and sometimes they need to use those, and they need to get that money out and into the hands of the people who need it. And that's what it's all about. That's sort of what the whole credit union movement is about, is people helping people. And that goes without saying. The same thing with the vendor. I mean, with the mentoring relationships. We've had some success with it. Again, some credit unions were not so successful in that the smaller credit union, or may have felt a little intimidated by phone calls and or meeting with some of the larger institutions. They were a little fearful that, hey, this credit union might want to take me over. Or there are sometimes cases where the bigger credit unions have a lot more resources available to them, and the smaller credit union might have felt a little bit inferior or concerned about, hey, this might make me look dumb or uneducated or so forth. And so, as examiners, we try to break down those barriers and set you up with somebody who you can trust, right? And so if you're out there and you need a mentor, the first resource that I would go to would probably be your examiner or the league, because the league also is out there to help you. If you have a credit union league that you belong to, you pay dues to them. Some credit union leagues are better than others, and at this part of the game. But yeah, so So reach out to your examiner. Sometimes they know, they can put you in touch with the right person at the right credit union, because what you're going to find is your examiner doesn't just examine your credit union and go home, right? Your examiner is going to usually touch about 10 to 15 different credit unions. That's the way it works in our group, because again, we're small. We have a lot of small credit unions. In some groups, you might have a lot of large credit unions, and those examiners might touch more than one credit union, sometimes 2 to 3. In ours, we might participate on other exams. So we meet the people out there that are doing the work, and sometimes we can, we can pick up a name for you and drop that name in there and let you help build that relationship. And if you feel uncomfortable building a relationship, we can sometimes make the phone call for you and put you in touch with them.
Great. Thank you so much,
T. You want to add to that?
Yeah, just really quick, I just wanted to add, just like T said, we help facilitate those discussions and those mentorships. And I think the league, if you're a member of your local league chapter, they'll do the same. So.
Got it. Thank you. And I think that was exactly what I think credit unions that are interested in being mentored needed to hear, because I think that's part of the holdback is their anxiety. So we had a couple questions I want to get to. We might go over just a little bit. This question came in early, and I'm giving it to you or T or Tyler, either one. It is, does this program help credit unions with writing or establishing policies commiserate with the credit union's asset size?
Hey, Ron, I can take that one. When it comes to developing policies, we can provide guidance and answer any questions that you may have. But at the end of the day, your board of directors has to approve the policies and set the limits and things like that. So yes, we can help provide guidance and answer questions, but your final policy has to be approved by your board.
Got it. Thank you.
And to add to that, I know that in some instances, as an examiner, I used to carry a handful of policies with me, right? And so I knew which credit unions needed them, and we had sample policies that we would pass out to the credit unions. So the only caution that I would add to that is that if somebody hands you a sample policy, read it, modify it, and make it your own, right? We get a chuckle sometimes because we'll go into one credit union and we'll read the policy, and the policy says we at ABC Credit Union, and it's like, no, you didn't even change the name. So make sure you read through the policy, adjust what you need to fit your credit union, and then make it yours. Own it, get the board to approve it, and then update it on an annual basis.
Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you both. The last two questions I'm gonna take and then turn it back over to you, Allie, real quick. They're both related to the LMS. The first one is, can these courses be downloaded so they can be sent to employees or board members? No, they cannot. But like I mentioned, when I said that your examiner can actually, find the courses in the LMS, copy the URL, and send it to you, you can do the same thing for the employees and volunteers of your credit union. All you have to do is just log into the system, find the courses you would like them to take, create a list of them. You can create a playlist and send it to them if you want, and then send them the playlist. You can put them all on a playlist, call it whatever you want, board training on compliance, whatever the topic is, and then send them the playlist. Or you can copy all the URLs, put them in an email and send it to them, and just ask them to log in first. Because if they're already logged into the LMS, once they click that URL, those courses will come right up. If they're not logged in, they're going to get the welcome page to ask them to log in. And once they log in, it doesn't take them to that course. The other question is it possible to obtain a report of training completed by employees and volunteers? And right now, the answer is no. But what you can do is ask each one of them to send you a copy of their certificate of completion. And then you just create the list, the report that way. So that is, and there's actually a way to go in and print out a list of everything that you've I just heard about that. I haven't figured out how to do it yet myself, but I'm sure there's some IT smart people smarter than me. You can go in and all you do is you go into, go into your training report, your transcript, and you can print everything that you've completed from that. Like I said, I haven't experimented and done it yet, but I heard through the grapevine that it's possible. So with that being said, I will turn it over to my colleague, Allie, but I want to thank Tyler and T one more time for a great presentation and for joining me and sharing this information with you. Allie, take it away.
All right, thank you, Ron, and just want to say thank you again to Tyler and Anthony, and Ron as well. All three of you did a wonderful job in today's presentation. The examples were amazing, I think, and really helpful for a lot of our credit unions. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you as well. I'm going to give a shout out to our learning management system one more time. I know Ron gave an amazing in-depth talk on our learning management system. So I'm going to leave this QR code up for just a couple of seconds while I go over it. If you want to go ahead, take your phone, your camera on your phone, scan that QR code. It'll take you right to our registration page for our learning management system to go ahead and be able, and if you have an existing account, you'll be able to sign in. If you need to create an account, you'll be able to create an account. It takes maybe 5 minutes to create an account. Honestly, the longest part is just waiting for all the courses to load. I know on this slide it says 200. I need to update it because we now have over 300. So with over 300 courses, it just takes a little bit of time to be able to get everything on there. But once it is, it's such a great wealth of knowledge, wonderful resource. And again, completely free, right? Like who doesn't love a great free resource with wonderful learning materials? And you get to see one of the people who has put so much effort into a lot of these courses that are learning on our learning management system with Ron. So it is amazing. Please go ahead and check it out. I highly recommend. You will not be disappointed. And then, like Ron said, I'm going to come up with a couple of contact information slides. So with the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion, we're really divided into two sides. Our goodness gracious, consumer access side handles everything from chartering, field of membership expansion, questions on share insurance, anything like that. Lids and lid designation, they are amazing at what they do. They're so incredibly smart and talented and can help provide support in any of those areas. So I highly recommend reaching out to them with any of your questions regarding those items. And then on our other side of CURE, we have the resources division, which is going to be, of course, Ron and myself, as well as several other really awesome individuals as well. Our division handles everything from grants and loans, the MDI preservation program, learning, just a wide variety of resources for everybody available. So please, if you have any questions, reach out to us. If you have any questions on the LMS, getting started, any questions, Ron and I are the ones that monitor that inbox. So we are the ones that will be responding to any questions that you have. So please reach out to us with any questions or anything like that. We're always happy to help. And before we close out for the day, I just want to take a moment to thank our wonderful support staff as well. Franz, who every single month has been an amazing technical support and assistance with running our webinar. Ron, who again did the Q&A session in addition to presenting. And then we also had some amazing people in the background as well, Jasmine and Sarah, who were amazing in providing background support. And then I also want to take a moment to thank our two ASL interpreters for joining us today, Anna and Tara. This is the first time for them joining a CURE webinar, and I'm very excited that they were able to join us to be able to provide support. And I look forward to collaborating with them in the future. So thank you again for joining us. And to our viewers, thank you for your time and attendance. This is our last webinar for the year for CURE, so I wish you a wonderful rest of the year, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2025 with some new amazing training opportunities. So thank you, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all next year. Have a good day, everyone.